Good morning. Good morning. Coach Kevin here with our daily Law of Attraction training and support class that we do for about 30 minutes each morning. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to share my screen with you guys and go ahead and get started. Okay. First thing I would like to do is point out to those of you who are watching this as a recording that we have a Facebook group that coincides with what we're doing. It's called Daily Law of Attraction Training and Support with Coach Kevin. And you can find us at facebook.com/groups/ Daily Law of Attraction Training. And this is where we go ahead and archive the recordings of these trainings. Sometimes I have people on with me, sometimes it's just myself, but I'm going to speak out to you as if there's actually an audience watching what's going on. So this is how you can find us. The next thing I want to share with you is what we are currently studying. We are currently studying a book called Hidden Treasures. And if you would like to get a free copy of the book, go to hiddentreasuresbook.com. That's hiddentreasuresbook.com and scroll down until you see click here for free download. So you'll go on the page, click there for free download, and then you'll be able to get a copy of the book. And we are currently on page 25, which is the chapter entitled Lesson 1, Law of Perpetual Transmutation. Now, as far as the author goes, her name is Leslie Householder. She and I met towards the end of 2005 in Arizona. We became friends. I went through a seminar she taught when she was a Bob Proctor coach and facilitator called The Science of Getting Rich, and went to the 3 days and totally changed my perception about the law of attraction and how things work. And she's authored this book and another one called The Jackrabbit Factor, um, which is a best-selling book. So anyhow, she currently does things, when I say on her own, she has a team, but when I say on her own, she now does her own trainings. And just like myself, I've been trained by Bob Proctor, and then I have now come to do my own trainings. So anyhow, wanted to go ahead and share this book with you. It's a book for me that I have not read in several years. And so what I do is I take what it is that I want to be trained on and learn about and then share with you while I'm going through it. Sometimes I read books that I've read only months ago, and sometimes I pick out books it's been years, and sometimes I pick out books that I've never read before. So anyhow, this one I have read, it's just been many, many years ago. All right, here we go with this. Lesson 1, Law of Perpetual Transmutation. The law of perpetual transmutation, that's just a fancy way of saying that everything is either coming into physical form or going out of it. For example, water can go from invisible humidity or vapor into the air to visible clouds to tangible rain to something even as solid as ice. At any point during the water's transformation, the process can reverse. A cloud does not necessarily turn to rain. Sometimes it disappears again into the clear blue sky. Rainfall doesn't always turn to ice. Sometimes it simply evaporates again and disappears into the air. So now think about an idea of prosperity. Perhaps for you, prosperity would mean more family time. A family picture as you are posed in front of the Egyptian pyramids could represent your idea of prosperity. You see yourself and family members with you huddled together, smiling with the pyramids in the background. Now put yourself in the picture and see the photographer taking it. You feel the sun beating down on you and the dust blowing by in the mild whistling breeze. There is laughter from your child or grandchild. You hear the photographer tell the group to hold still and say, "Mummy," and then you can picture the group disassembling and walking back to the tour bus or camel. Are you thirsty? What would you like? The situation may be compared to the changing forms of water. The situation has not manifested itself in the physical world yet, just as vapor is not yet rain. But for a moment, the circumstances required to make that situation a reality were actually beginning to gather as a cloud gathers in the sky. If you want to hold on to that idea and pursue the goal with firm determination and not throw it out with disbelief and apathy, then eventually it would happen in real life. Belief keeps the idea cloud gathering until it is so heavy that the rain must begin to fall. The circumstances you need begin to present themselves, just like water can change from an invisible to visible state. So can Egyptian vacation idea transmute itself into reality. However, disbelief and apathy will, by law, cause the cloud of your idea to dissipate back into the clear blue sky. In this illustration, we see the water takes many forms on its way from being invisible to solid. The process can reverse at any point along the way. Vapor to cloud to rainwater to ice. Our idea takes many forms on its way from being non existent to being part of our reality in our physical world. Again, the process can reverse at any point along the way. Non existent, an idea, its spiritual form, and its physical manifestation. From our perspective, figures 5 and 6 are an illustration of the process through which the things and circumstances we desire come to us. The photograph in front of the pyramids may not be in your scrapbook right now, but at the very least, it has moved from being non existent to being an idea. That's a start. The law of transmutation states that everything, every object, every circumstance, etc., is constantly developing into form or dissipating out of form. When you decide to discard an idea, it ceases to develop and begins to dissipate. Brigham Young, the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, back in the middle 1800s, spoke about what he believed it to be like when we join the spirit world. In doing so, he revealed a powerful truth that puts these ideas into perspective. He said, if we want to visit Jerusalem or this, that, or the other place, and I presume we will be permitted if we desire, there we are looking at its streets. If we wanted to behold Jerusalem as it was in the days of the Savior, or if we want to see the Garden of Eden as it was when created, there we are. And we see it as it existed spiritually. For it was created first spiritually and then temporally, and spiritually it still remains. Another way to look at this law is to consider anything living. All living things are either growing or disintegrating. A body starts out invisible, but if you ask any pregnant woman, she'll say there's one coming. Ask any old man if his body is coming or going, and he will tell you that his eyesight is going and that his ability to remember may already be gone. In short, he is disintegrating. We all are once we have reached our prime. We are on our way back to an invisible state. What about an acorn in your hand? Is it growing or disintegrating? It is disintegrating because it isn't in the right environment for growth. But an acorn in the ground is growing. With the right conditions, one day it will become an oak tree. Ideas are things too. An idea in the beginning state is invisible in the physical world. The right environment for an idea is our mind. Held there long enough, it begins to move from the invisible to the visible world. Rooted out of our mind by doubt or apathy, the idea is drawn back into the etheric state to remain invisible forever. How many times do you have an idea of prosperity, and for a moment you can picture yourself living abundantly, And then the idea goes away because you brush it aside as impractical. So long as you held the thought in your mind, everything you needed was, by law, beginning to be drawn to you. When you let go of the idea, all those things were drawn away from you. You never saw evidence of these changes taking place, so you had no idea that what you desired was being affected by your thoughts. Think about your idea as something that exists in spirit and see it transmuting, gathering all the elements it needs until it manifests on the physical plane. When setting lofty goals, trust that they will show up, even though it usually only shows up after you make the commitment to reach the goal. An idea is held in the right environment, your mind, or as an idea is held in the right environment, your mind will begin to take form. It is only in the last stage of the process that you will see it. Do not reverse the process with doubt or fear. Belief and faith bring it into form. Doubt and fear return it to the invisible. Situations, events, and things are perpetually transmuting. They are constantly coming or going from or toward the physical plane, but we just don't see it happening. So it is naturally easy to doubt. You must believe this law, and you will be able to have the faith you need to hold the idea in your mind until you see until you see fruition. In fact, I've noticed that many times I will have a thought which I may entertain for a while and imagine how it would feel if it should come true. But then life goes on and I forget the situation I had imagined without consciously discarding the idea at some point along the way as impossible. Many times I have found the situation came true all on its own, even though I hadn't spent a whole lot of time trying to make it happen. I suppose that seed was of a variety that didn't require a whole lot of attention, like a palm tree in the desert. The seed had been planted and not uprooted. Therefore, it grew all on its own. It grew. All I had to do was imagine it, feel the emotion I expected to feel, and then let it grow by leaving it alone, doubting not. To illustrate how much can happen without conscious effort, an author by the name of Dr. Raymond N. Hollywell, in a book called Working with the Law, put it this way. In some instances, results that seem almost magical will appear. Often there has been a deep longing desire for a particular good with no expectation of its realization. The addition of action will finish the process with the happiest results. Yes, action is part of the formula for sure. But while it is by action you receive it, the unseen help you need is only drawn to you by faith. Action without faith can be like running on a treadmill while expecting to eventually arrive somewhere important. Although it can be tough to comprehend it, since all we can really see is our physical world, it is important at this point that you accept the more abstract idea as fact. Just as we cannot see the vibrating molecules in the rock, we have learned to accept the fact that there are molecules and that they do vibrate. So trust me on this one. And from here, we'll be able to build some very powerful ideas to explain the mystery behind prosperity. Good thoughts and actions can never produce bad results. Bad thoughts and actions can never produce good results. That's James Allen. Men imagine that thought can be kept secret, but it cannot. It rapidly crystallizes into habit, and habit solidifies into circumstance. In the beginning, all things were first an idea in God's mind. There is an original formless substance or matter from which all things are created, and it exists throughout the universe. As Wallace D. Waddell states in his 100-year-old classic, The Science of Getting Rich, there is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the universe. The moment a thought is held in the mind, the formless substance obediently organizes itself to reflect that thought. In due course, the original substance goes from formless to having a spirit form, which reflects the characteristics of the image held in the mind. I believe all things that are physical were first created spiritually this way, held in the mind long enough with the unwavering belief that it will manifest itself in physical form. By law, it is created spiritually, and eventually it comes to us physically. By law, it must. As we use our thoughts constructively, we are acting as co creators with God, helping to bring order and form to the formless substance. Belief is an emotion which speeds the creative process, while doubt returns an idea to a formless state. So, if you desire something or a circumstance that is good and in harmony with God's desires for you, hold the idea in your mind, believing that it is being created and is on its way. The original substance is obedient to the law of perpetual transmutation and the influence or belief of belief and doubt. God understands this law perfectly and uses it to accomplish his purposes as well. It is my personal belief he commands the very elements this way. I believe this is how he organized our world in the beginning. However, he does it, I'm grateful for the concept because it helps me have faith in his power. It helps me have faith, which is precisely what he requires of me before he grants my request for his blessings. Many people of different faiths may say that he established the laws. Others say the laws have always existed and he uses them for his purposes. It does not matter which way we believe, these laws can be employed regardless. Read the following passages now with a new perspective. Ask in faith, nothing wavering. James 1:6. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Psalms 37:4 through 5. All things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive. Matthew 21:22. Whatsoever thing ye ask in faith, believing ye shall receive in the name of Christ, ye shall receive it. Enos 1:15. Whatsoever thing ye ask my Father in my name, which is good, in faith, believing that ye shall receive, behold, it shall be done unto you. Moroni 7:26. Clearly, in order to be prepared to receive his blessings, we must be striving to follow the Lord's example of living a pure life. Must we already be perfect? No, but I believe we must be pointed steadfastly in that direction. What is faith? We learn throughout the scriptures how destructive the emotions of doubt and fear can be. On the other hand, we've been taught how powerful faith can be. Faith is seeing the results in your mind as though they were already realized, feeling the joy now that you expect to feel then, and then proving your faith by taking action. Remember that when you do this, you're setting in motion unseen forces to prepare the way for your success. Knowledge of this law of perpetual transmutation helps us maintain our faith. When we learn that believing is seeing, not the other way around. What if we humbly and sincerely think about and visualize what we're asking for? What if we allowed ourselves to really feel gratitude for what we need, even before it is with us, as though he has already granted the desires of our heart? That, my friends, is faith. Boyd K. Packer, president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, provides a clarifying explanation to help us understand the difference between the faith we exercise on a daily basis and the more rare kind of faith that we are invited to develop. He states, there are two kinds of faith. One of them functions ordinarily in the life of every soul. It is the kind of faith born by experience. It gives us certainty that a new day will dawn, that spring will come, that growth will take place. It is the kind of faith that relates us with confidence to that which is scheduled to happen. There is another kind of faith, rare indeed. This is the kind of faith that causes things to happen. It is the kind of faith that is worthy and prepared and unyielding, and it calls forth things that otherwise would not be. It is the kind of faith that moves people. It is the kind of faith that sometimes moves things. It comes by gradual growth. It is a marvelous, even transcendent power, a power as real and as invisible as electricity. Directed and channeled, it has great effect. How to pray with faith. Let's reflect on how we generally approach God in prayer. Do we go to Him feeling frustrated and upset that He hasn't met our needs yet, and beg Him to please give us what we ask for, all the while hardly believing He is listening, let alone getting ready to grant our request? Do we find ourselves complaining more than expressing gratitude? Do we feel weary that it has taken Him so long to make the changes we want in our life? What if He was right there, ready with that which we desire, prepared to hand it to us, the moment or soon after we approach Him with the right attitude, with a grateful and patient heart, genuinely believing we'll receive it because we've already determined through sincere prayer that it is a desire which is in line with His will for us, a process we'll discuss more extensively in a moment. Imagine one of your children approaching you with gratitude for the sandwich they hope to receive from you. They're already licking their lips as though it's already in their hands, and they only ask once without a question of whether or not you might refuse them. They have hope and eager anticipation in their eyes. Provided there wasn't a good reason to refuse, you'd give them what they ask. On the other hand, what if a child approached you whining, "Please, I need a sandwich. I'm so hungry." Why haven't you already given me a sandwich? You knew I was going to be hungry. Where's my sandwich? Do you blame me for thinking there's no way I should reward a child for such ingratitude? That child, if he were in my family, would go hungry until he changed his approach. Do I have a sandwich to give? Yes. Do I want the child to have it? Of course. Can I give it to him if he asks improperly? Not if I'm a good parent. Now, what if the child, instead of saying, "Please give me a sandwich," said, "Will you give me a sandwich?" and simply wait for a reply? A simple, direct, expectant question like that is easy to answer, yes or no. How silly it would be if I said yes for that child to continue begging for a sandwich. The illustrations bring up 2 points. One addresses the kinds of questions we ask, and the other is about vain repetitions. Yes, no questions. First of all, when you pray for something, consider asking yes, no questions. Ask if it's a worthy desire, and let Him speak peace to you if it is. If you experience a stupor of thought, which causes you to forget your question, try posing an alternative question. However, if you feel the peace you're seeking, then you may then decide to ask, is it appropriate for me to ask whether or not Thou will grant it? If you again feel peace, then consider asking directly, wilt Thou do this for me? Listen or feel for an answer of peace instead of that stupor, which literally causes you to forget what it was that you're asking for in the first place. Throughout this process, waiting for an answer is the polite thing to do when asking God a question, or anyone else for that matter. I realize that even after we receive a witness or confirmation, it can be a challenge to guard against doubtful, negative thoughts and dismiss them as irrelevant. But that is exactly what we need to do. What if a recognizable answer doesn't come? Sometimes we simply have to determine on our own whether or not the goal is appropriate. Then we must make a decision and go for it. I learned a powerful lesson one day from a church speaker that at times we proceed so tentatively that by the time we realize we're on the wrong path, it's too late to fix it. Instead, if we would move forward with resolved determination and conviction, and if we are on the wrong path, then at least we'd be able to discover our error early enough to make the appropriate course correction. We do better to take action based on our own best judgment than to wait until we're told exactly what to do at every turn. Think about it. How can the Lord direct our course if we're not even on one? Sometimes the Lord's will is not apparent until a period of time after we've demonstrated a resolved commitment to a particular path. As they say, you can't steer a parked car. I remember a time when my husband and I had a burning desire to move our family back to our home state. I had recently learned the laws and truly believed that if I could have anything I asked for, or excuse me, I had recently learned the laws and truly believed that I could have anything I asked for. For years, we prayed to be able to move and felt good every time we presented the idea to the Lord, and yet there we remained, thinking that all we lacked was resolved commitment. We finally decided to just make it happen and figured the details out along the way. So we put our California house up for sale and made an offer on a home in Arizona, which was accepted and put under contract. We said our goodbyes and planned to have my husband commute on the weekends until he found a new job closer to home. Besides, the 1 hour plane ride would have been a faster commute than the 2.5 hours through Los Angeles traffic. Contrary to our expectations, our $156,000 house would not sell. Week after week, we wondered what we were doing wrong. Finally, we took the matter to the Lord again, this time with new questions. We were certain that it was the right thing to do, but perhaps the wrong time. As soon as we asked if we should stay a while longer, working to get our ducks in a row just a little better, and instead make the move in a couple years, we felt the warm, assuring feeling, a peace that told us we were on the right track. Although I thought I could take 2 or 3 more years to be ready, in only 8 more months, we felt the Spirit direct us that the time was right, and our home sold for $140,000, more than what we could get for it only 8 months before. The point is that every time we asked about moving to Arizona, we felt peace. But since God didn't send a whirlwind to pick us up and put us there, we had to work out the details. And we didn't get any concrete answers one way or another. We had to make our own decision and take action. It wasn't until after committing to our decision that we felt the Lord step in and steer us a different way. We felt like we were in limbo, getting no concrete direction until after we chose a path. If we had stayed put, we wouldn't have needed direction because we were already doing what He wanted us to do in the first place. We just didn't know it yet. Why we pray often. An important, let's see, how far do we have left in this particular? Okay, we'll keep going. We're probably going to go over just a few minutes here, but we're close enough. I think we should. So hang with me if you can. Why we pray often. As important as it is that we strive to get our minds and heart in alignment with the Lord's, our reason for praying often is important as well. We must pray often about our desire, not to be sure He heard us, but to ask for continual guidance and seek for ourselves the confirmation from His Spirit that we're on the right path and that He will grant the success we ask. A confirmation is one of those tender mercies, which the Spirit sometimes provides to help us be strong through the waiting period. Remember, if my child asks me for a sandwich and I say yes, it would be out of place to ask her again. So it is with us. After receiving a confirmation that our request would be granted, to continue asking for the same thing would seem inappropriate. I believe that we may constitute one aspect of the vain repetition the scriptures counsel us against. Vain repetitions. Let's look at how often we ask. When we pray for something, do we use vain repetitions? See Matthew 6, verse 7. Perhaps we've done so unknowingly. Perhaps you have a desire for which you've asked the Lord time and time again, hoping that your persistence would pay off. When my children do the same to me, it's called nagging. especially if I've just responded with a yes, without having a chance to deliberate it. It would be perplexing for my child to ask again and again after receiving a positive response. I'd wonder, don't you believe me? Didn't you hear me? Just because I said yes, it doesn't mean that it has to happen in the next 30 seconds. There's a space of time between yes and the delivery of the promised sandwich. It's a reasonable thing to allow some time for the goods to show up. So, what if we asked once with a heart full of faith, knowing that to ask again might be what the Lord refers to as a vain repetition? After all, He already heard us the first time, and in fact, knew what we needed long before we ever uttered the prayer. If we took the time to first ask if He would grant the request, and if we received an answer of peace, then wouldn't it be unnecessary to keep asking? Perhaps instead we could be at peace, knowing it was only a matter of time, because that which we asked for was already on its way. Then we begin to move our feet and get to work as though it depended on us. We make our way to the lunch table and maybe even get the bread out of the bread box and jelly from the refrigerator ourselves. We'd remind ourselves that He said, "Ask and ye shall receive." And since we asked, we know that we would eventually receive. We wouldn't feel desperate or think that our repeated requests were necessary to get Him to hear us and respond. Let us be careful lest we nag the Lord. Sometimes we can weary Him with our petitions, and even if they're not His will for us, He will grant the request to allow us to suffer the natural consequences of failing to trust Him in all things. Be careful what you pray for, as they say, or you just might get it. Does this mean we should pray only once for what we need or desire? No, we're to pray continually over all things. Then how do we avoid vain repetitions? After making our request and receiving a witness of peace, then from there, instead of praying that we might receive it, it would seem more fitting that our continual prayer would be prayers of gratitude for that which is coming. I use my understanding of the law of perpetual transmutation to imagine the resources I need finding their way to me. This helps me believe that if I get to work doing all I can, there are unseen forces at work as well, preparing to provide me with all I need to accomplish the goal. I expect to make the happy connections somewhere along the way. Isn't this amazing? If you think the first law was intriguing, just wait, it gets better. So the next one will be the law of relativity for tomorrow. And hey, good morning, Joseph. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin and Crystal.
Good
How are you?
morning. Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Joseph.
Nice to see you here, everybody.
Yes, you too.
Good to see you guys. Any questions or comments?
That is just very interesting. It's just a very you can see that how deep her knowledge is in this in this field. It's just very accurate stuff.
Awesome. How about
Thanks for
Crystal?
reading it. That's great.
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, hopefully you guys both go download a copy of it and read it.
Yeah, definitely.
You have anything, Crystal? Questions or comments?
Yeah, it's interesting when it says that, okay, if you keep on asking the Lord, ask him, he's going to give you what you just want. So watch what you ask for. That's just so I guess if you just keep on asking for something and not fully understand it, I guess you can get something and you're like, okay, what did I get myself into?
Yeah. I mean, if you ask and you get the peace at the beginning, then chill out. But if you ask and you don't get an answer and you don't get the peace, don't keep asking until, it's kind of like the prodigal son in the Bible, kept asking dad for the wealth so he could take off and do his thing. And finally, dad's like, okay, fine, here it is, go. And the situation didn't turn out good for him. Now, the great thing about God and the great thing about law of attraction is when his son finally realized he made a mistake, and he realized that where he needed to go back to was his dad. So he did go back to his dad, and his dad didn't treat him poorly and say, I told you so. his dad welcomed him back because his dad knew he learned a lesson and he didn't have to live poor any longer like he had been doing once he ran out of money. So understand too, if we do make a mistake, we don't need to freak out. We just need to ask, for things to be changed and fixed and put into their proper order. But we don't have to suffer the consequences. There's a law of karma, but there's also a law of grace. And karma means what we put out there, we receive back.
Right.
We all make mistakes, and we all do things and say things we shouldn't to people, right? And therefore that could come back and bite us. However, at least in the Christian world, a belief that Christ actually paid the price for our mistakes and our sins, we can then ask to be forgiven and let grace take over, and then just go create the new thing that we want in the positive, so that the negative things we're dealing with will go away.
Oh, okay. So say if you did make a mistake, like you said, oh, like you thought this was the ideal thing, you didn't feel good about it, you felt, but you did it anyway and you made a mistake.
Yeah,
So you're saying it could be corrected.
any mistake can be corrected. Can somebody who's gone bankrupt become rich again?
Something financially, like you made a financial mistake.
Well, that's just a mistake, right? I mean, other than probably murdering somebody because you can't bring their life back, most anything else that we do can be corrected. Now, we may not have the power to correct it, but God does.
Right, because say you made a financial mistake and then put yourself deep in a hole. You're like, oh my God, why did I even, you didn't feel 100% peaceful there, but you did it anyway because you thought that was the ideal thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And so
then
there's the key to it. You didn't feel peaceful about it. So now you can recognize I'm in a hole. Instead of freaking out about it, then you go back to what we're learning right now and say, okay, hold on. What do I really want? And then start visualizing yourself feeling that and asking God for help, and he'll turn it around for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, awesome, you two. Good to have you with us this morning, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, I have just a quick
Question?
thought about asking just
Okay.
second, Kevin, because it's so interesting. Because I think that when what comes to me quickly is about asking is that I think also there's like a more mature level of asking in terms of when the asking for an adult who is responsible and getting more aware as being putting context of not just asking for an object, but asking for something to manifest through asking for an opportunity to contribute one's individual value, service. Like, I kind of see it in this context. What's your thought on that? As opposed to just asking, just like when a child is asking for something. I think we've been asking for so much and we have received so much along the line of taking stuff out of the collective, right? Constantly, that there's a point where there's an individual contribution where we have opportunity to start feeding it back.
Yeah. So here's what I would tell you about this, Joseph. We're all different in what our talents are different. Our abilities are different. I mean, we're capable of manifesting anything. Okay. But as far as like without God's help, we're all limited in what we're able to offer. So I understand you saying, help me find something to offer, help me to provide value to the world. And that's cool. You can ask for that. I still, when Jesus did what he did, he asked for things and he did not necessarily. So for instance, he had to go pay tax, but he was busy with his mission, preaching the gospel and telling people about God and how things work. He didn't have time to go at that point to go get a job so that he could earn the money to pay his tax to Caesar. But what he did is he told his disciples, go fish over here, and they found a fish with a gold coin in its mouth. Okay. In that instance, Jesus could have done two things. One, offer value, earn the money, or two, what he did do, which was hey, here's where the coin is. He knew where the fish was. He knew where the coin was. He knew where to find it. The fish had been put there for that purpose, to swallow that coin. When it fell out of somebody else's pocket, probably, if it was going to end up in the bottom of the, the lake that they were fishing in. So Jesus was offering value to the world. We offer value to the world by being our best selves, not necessarily by creating the next Microsoft or Facebook or Zoom or Amazon. I found that God leads me to provide value when I ask for things, when that's the path he wants me to go down to receive. I also find that sometimes I ask for something and he just gives it to me. So I've decided that I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to follow intuition. And then if he wants me to start a particular business or coach certain types of clients, or because I've had multiple businesses over the years too, and they've all helped supply things and had helped me give value to the world and helped me receive money. But again, I've also received a lot of great things in my life of monetary value without actually doing something specific to receive it. So I just leave it up to God how he wants to deliver it to me. And he knows where I'm at in my mind and my heart. He knows my talents and my abilities. He knows what's been developed and not been developed. And so I don't feel the need to ask to give value to the world, because I already feel I am value to the world. And as long as we feel that we are value to the world just by being who we are, we're going to be more at peace about this. Some people were meant to create something like an Amazon or something like the railroad or something like electricity. I myself personally don't know if that's something God's going to use me for. And I'm confident and at peace that he's going to do things his way, the way he wants it done, and utilize me the way he wants to utilize me, either way. So I'm just going to ask for that which I want. And if he gives me the thumbs up of the peace and comfort in my mind and in my heart, then I'm going to accept that he said yes. And then I'm going to stay in gratitude about it. I'm going to live my life in my mind and in my heart as I meditate and as I visualize, as if I'm already living the way that I want with the thing I asked for. And every time I do that and I stick with it, God will show me how to receive it. So I've received a lot of great things without thinking I've offered any specific value. And I've received a lot of great things where I could look back and go, the value provided was huge. However, I wouldn't have probably come up with any of the ideas all on my own, or I would have come up with ideas of my own that wouldn't have actually accomplished what God needed me to accomplish. So I just ask him like a kid, if you talk about another thing it talks about in the Bible, unless you become as a little child, that's what God wants. He wants us to actually trust him to provide for us what we ask for. But we keep wanting to feel like we're part of the process. And the more we want, and in doing that, I'm not saying you specifically, Joseph, but eventually people like, I provided the value, I created the business, I made the money, I bought the thing. And it's like, okay, whoa, chill out there. You forget where all this came from.
This is
So
great.
sometimes being the one providing value and getting a bunch of money, that's sometimes where a person can get off track, even because now they feel that they're the provider of their own good. So it's a balance of recognizing where everything comes from and how it comes to us, and letting him decide how to provide it, and we go along for the ride.
That's interesting. I meant that's great thoughts, Kevin. I meant like the asking in terms of being in context of one's mission, because I mean primarily we seek to find out throughout life, and we find at different stages of seeking of what is our main contribution.
Yeah.
that kind of falls in line with also with our desire and what we enjoy doing, and in what field of service we kind of fit in. And then
Mhm.
kind of I meant it in that context, they asking to be like, it's like more responsible. It is both fulfilling one's personal journey and at the same time being able to and having an opportunity to contribute individual values to the
Yeah.
collective, right?
Yeah. One thing, and this is just for me, that's been interesting. I'm looking back and thinking as you're saying this, I'm like, okay, when did I learn about the law of attraction? And I started learning about it in fall of 2005. When did I go to the Science of Getting Rich seminar? That was February of 2006. And that's sort of where my introduction to law of attraction started. And The Secret came out a few months later. I Interestingly enough, at least from my life, the whole life's purpose thing, that for me has shifted multiple times in 14 to 15 years. God's put me on the path to do different things at different times in different years. There have been businesses that I've had and worked on and was a part of and started that I did for 3 or 4 years. And then there's some that I did for 5 or 6 months. I don't know why God hasn't done it for me, or maybe that's not my path necessarily, but I haven't found the thing that is my purpose. But maybe my purpose is not to be the person that just has one thing that's my purpose. Maybe God wants to use me and say, hey, you're diverse enough in your talents and abilities that this time you're going to do this. Okay, now we're going to shift away from that. And now you're going to go do this. Now, he might be preparing me for something that is my purpose still. I don't know, by giving me multiple things, but I haven't really been put on a path to pick one thing and follow that through as my life's purpose and my life's mission.
That's actually in line with very much in line with the fact of life, how we have different cycles in our life when we, fulfill different roles and different travel different roads and learn different lessons. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's rare with some people to pick a career initially, or and then they stay on it for the rest of their lives. There are such cases, but for probably a lot of people are, especially for seekers, is just like you say, there are many different avenues and opportunities, and fulfilling one role and then moving on to where life calls one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bob Proctor, he decided once he figured it out and started earning millions of dollars that, hey, you know what? Okay, I need to understand how this all works because I don't understand how to explain it to others. So then he made it his life's mission and he's stuck with that the whole time, which is awesome. I'm glad
Yeah.
he did, because I probably wouldn't know about him if he hadn't. For me, maybe if several years ago, me teaching this, I did through example and through talking with people from time to time, but I didn't take it on as something to do more formally. And until, September of last year. And then I made up my mind that, you know what, for now, or been led by God for now, this is what he wants me to do. So this is what I'm doing.
That's great.
Yeah.
We appreciate your service.
Oh, I appreciate having somebody here listening.
I'm sure more people will gather to it as you keep putting these out there.
Oh yeah.
When you start something, it's not really visible, but eventually, I'm sure there'll be a big gathering around it because it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I believe that if that's the way that God wants it to flow. The other part too is you guys are obviously welcome to tell other people and they just got to be willing to wake up.
Oh, definitely.
Um, yeah,
All right.
I was gonna just one question. I was gonna just one question. Just what you just said that you were meant to do multiple things. So say one, I guess people have different paths in lives or different, I guess, goals or whatever. So they might just have one thing that they just love and that's it, or two things. So it varies depending on the person.
Yeah, and I'm also from a personality standpoint, I like variety. So God's blessed me with that. And with variety, what's a challenge with variety is having mastery, though. And that's
Yeah.
what Bob Proctor has helped me realize, is that, you know what, you can do a lot of things in your life, but if you're going to master any given thing, you've got to give it more attention than to just going over it one time. Nobody
Okay.
becomes really good at just reading a book one
Mhm.
time. I might read a book today, get something
Mhm.
from it, even apply what I learned, and have a great result. But I really haven't mastered the concept and have it become a part of me the way that Bob has with some of these things, because I maybe haven't spent the time to do that. And it's rare that anybody can just look at or read something one time and have it enter their subconscious and be a part of who they are. Until we get something into our subconscious to where it's more of an autopilot thing for us, then it's really not been mastered. That it's the God, I think what God really wants for us to do as he teaches us is to take each new thing and get it into that autopilot mode so he can move on and teach us something else.
Okay.
That's a great point. I that's why it's great to some certain books I like to read with a pencil. Like when I kind of underline something or kind
Uh-huh.
of it slows you down and drives you deeper into that. Some things, audiobooks are great, but it goes so fast you understand it on one level or a few levels, and there's so many deeper strata, deeper layer there's there that how often we pick up a book and when we read it and it's so much more emerges, right?
Yeah.
From a deeper layers of dimensions of thought and interrelation of meaning in a book.
You know what? You just gave me a thought here. Hang with me for a second, Joseph. I'm going to go into screen share because I want to find something. Let me get into Facebook and let's see if I had put it. Actually, let me go into, come on, science, getting rich. Oh, I know what it, probably a better place to find this. Hang on, stay with me. Come on, computer, please cooperate with me. Sometimes when I've got Zoom and then I'm messing around with too many windows, it just kind of slows down, but I wanted to share with you something.
Mm-hmm.
I meant to do it yesterday, but I didn't see you here.
Yes, I was out yesterday.
Yeah. Come on, please, YouTube, come up faster, please. All right. My channel. Okay. Okay, here's what it was. Actually, don't need to do that. What I wanted to do all right. All right. If you go into chat, Joseph,
Yes.
I shared a link. So tonight we're going into our second chapter of The Science of Getting Rich in the class that Crystal's in and other people.
Mhm.
What I wanted to do is share with you our introductory class to that. So the first session that we had. So I just put in a link right here.
I appreciate that. I'll look at it.
Yeah, please click on it because it's going to disappear on you if you don't.
Yes, I just copied it, but I'm gonna click
Okay,
on it.
perfect.
I just it doesn't seem to be clickable. Is it clickable link? I copied it because
2 days, not the workbook, but just the book version, which is yeah, that's the short. Well, you know what, I could try this version too.
yeah, and I copy pasted it out of there because
Okay. I was gonna say that's the shortened URL. This is probably the full URL right here. I just added that also, so you can copy both of them. But if you like to watch that, go ahead and do so. And it's not too late if you wanted to join us.
well, in this section, in this leg of the journey, I'm just so over the top, beyond belief, over committed, that definitely keep an eye on it for probably on the next sometime down the lane. Right
Okay.
now is just like way over the top of my head. Frankly, I have to too many things running side by side right now.
Okay.
But I definitely want to check it out. I much appreciate it.
Okay, cool.
That's a very interesting book. I wonder if you also explore some other of his books. He has a science of
Oh, Wallace Wattles, The Science of Being Well and The Science of Being Great.
yes.
I've read them both quite a long time ago. I've never gone in depth in either of them.
Mm-hmm. I read both of them also. The other ones.
You know, it's interesting, and I don't know why things happen the way they do exactly, but like Napoleon Hill, before he wrote Think and Grow Rich, had actually written a book. I'm going to get it wrong, but a series basically of books about 13 laws, which basically the science or Think and Grow Rich is a condensed version. However, Think and Grow Rich is the book that became popular.
Right.
Right. Wallace Wattles wrote all 3 books also, but there's the one for him that became popular. You know, sometimes Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Sometimes there's an author who's written several different books, but there's one that stands out and the world kind of takes in.
Yes, absolutely.
And a lot of times it's hard to reproduce that one. You know, people are like, well, I'm going to do another. I'm going to have another, this, that, or the other. And it's just never, I mean, they're still the same human being, but there was something special going on whenever they were writing whatever they were writing. And it was just meant to have a long, you know, reach for the world. So
that's right. They were kind of more inspired. They kind of reached deeper into
right.
that level of inspiration.
Well, I think it had to be shortened out, or else people wouldn't have read that one, you know, as far as like Think and Grow Rich.
Right.
Because as it is for most people, not for us maybe, but for most people, they think that's a pretty big book. Just imagine reading his other one, which is basically like an encyclopedia set. And people just wouldn't get around to doing it. So God had to guide him to do something a little bit shorter, or else nobody would have paid attention to him in the first place.
Right. The amazing thing to me is how these books are interrelated. And once one begins to study them, then these main lines of connection begin to emerge, and a larger perspective kind of begin to make sense. In a larger context, and how individuals fit in. You know, it's just, I find it very interesting.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, I will let the 2 of you go, and we will see you guys in the morning.
I
See you
will much
tomorrow.
appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Yeah,
see you
you're very
both
welcome.
tomorrow. Thank you
See you.
again.